Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Learning Kitchen Live. My name is Carolyn Boyd and I am one of the registered dietitians here at Community Servings. As always, I want to remind everyone that later today we'll have the recipe as well as a nutrition education handout in the comment section of this video. So if you like what you see or are interested in making the recipe, I encourage you to check that out. So we are going to jump into our recipe. And today's recipe, or the intent of it, is to try to give you a quick, convenient recipe to fill your bellies on those busy mornings when you're trying to get you and your family out the door. I get it. It can be really challenging to make breakfast a part of your daily routine. And so having something that you can make ahead of time or something that's quick and convenient can be very helpful for you and your loved ones. So today I'm going to show you how to make pumpkin baked oatmeal cups. And so my favorite thing about this recipe, as you can kind of see here, it's a lot of pantry staples. So many of these ingredients you might already have on hand, or you might just have to buy one or two things, which makes it very convenient. In terms of putting it together, there's really no prep work involved. We have everything measured out nicely, but you could truly just dump from the pantry staples in your cabinet or in your kitchen and put them in the oven. So for this recipe, what we are going to do is first combine our wet ingredients and then just add in our dry ones, and then it's baking them off in the oven and you have a tasty breakfast ready to go. For our wet ingredients here, we have some milk. So today I'm just using cow's milk, but if you have an allergy or prefer a plant-based option, you certainly could swap that out in this recipe. We're going to add some maple syrup. So adding maple syrup is in place of just like traditional sugar, so it adds a nice sweetness to it, plus it's a little bit more liquidy to make them nice and moist. We're going to add some vanilla extract, eggs, and then some canned pumpkin. All right. So we're going to give this a little bit of a stir and make sure those eggs are whisked. And while I do that, I'm going to talk about the canned pumpkin. We have talked about this before on Learning Kitchen Live, but if you are just joining us for the first time or need a refresher, when you are going to the grocery store, it is so important to look for 100% pumpkin puree. So there are baking pumpkins or like dessert pumpkin pie fillings. Those have a lot of other ingredients in there, specifically added sugar. So again, when you're looking in the baking aisle, just make sure you're choosing that 100% pure pumpkin puree. The only ingredient should be pumpkin. All right, so these are all mixed together. You can see it already has like a nice orange color. That actually comes from the canned pumpkin. And that comes from the beta carotene in there. So this is a nutrient that adds that bright, vibrant orange color. It helps with your eye, skin, teeth, nail health, and can even help with your immune system, which it's December, so very important this time of the year. All right. So the wet ingredients are all combined in there, and then we're just going to add our dry ingredients right into the bowl. So today we have old-fashioned oats. With this recipe, I would encourage you to use old-fashioned oats versus like the quicker instant oats. The reason being is the quicker instant oats, because they're a little bit finer, they tend to dissolve a little bit more in the batter. They don't hold up as well and actually tend to make more of like a dense muffin, which you'll see what they should look like a little bit later. So we add our oats into the bowl. You're going to add some other spices. So we have some just cinnamon, a little bit of salt, and baking powder. And then the final ingredient you're going to add is pumpkin pie spice. So pumpkin pie spice, you can find this pre-made at the grocery store, just in your spice or baking aisle. But it does tend to be a little bit more expensive. So something that you can do is actually make it at home yourself. If you have a simple mixture of cloves, ginger, nutmeg, allspice, and cinnamon. So if you have those 5 ingredients, you have pumpkin pie spice. There are so many different recipes online. And what I like to do, specifically at the beginning of the fall, is make a larger kind of jar or container of it. Typically, I tend to use pumpkin pie spice more in the fall and winter months, so I'll make that and just have it to go versus having to buy a more expensive ingredient at the store. Right. So then what you're going to do is just mix this to combine and make sure all of the ingredients are coated. So again, you're going to see here it's a little bit on the liquidy side, but when it cooks in the oven, it'll all firm up. All right. So at this point, if you wanted to, you could fold in or add in some other additional options or add-ins. So for example, like nuts or seeds, you could add some chocolate chips. You could even add some dried fruit like cranberries in there. Today, we're just gonna make the recipe as is so you can see what it looks like. But certainly if you have something that you'd wanna add at home, you could toss these in as well. All right. So that's it. Pretty simple to put together, right? The next step is just putting these into muffin tins and then baking them in the oven. So this recipe here will make 12 muffins. So if you just have your standard muffin tin, that's all you need. And I don't even use muffin tin like liners or cupcake holders. What I do is just take nonstick spray and pretty liberally spray this container, and they should just pop right out in the end. All right. And so what you're going to do is just scoop some of this mixture evenly into each of the tins. You're going to want to fill them all the way to the top. And you can kind of see the batter here. It's a little liquidy, right? So when you're filling these, just make sure that it's a nice even mixture of the solid ingredients and then some of that extra liquid. All right, so while I go ahead, I'm going to start filling these. Try not to make a mess and spill it everywhere. And while I do that, I want to talk about some of the nutritional benefits of this recipe. So earlier I spoke about that beta carotene, again, what gives pumpkin that like bright orange color. And another, I guess, nutrient star of this recipe is fiber. So fiber comes from plants. So it's a type of non-digestible carbohydrate, and it comes from plant foods. And because it really can't be digested, it moves very slowly through our bodies or our digestive system. And what this does, it helps with like digestive health, gut motility, helps you feel fuller longer, it can help stabilize your blood sugars, and can even help lower cholesterol levels, which is pretty great. So fiber, as you can kind of tell, is very important for our overall nutrition and medical health. But unfortunately, most Americans do not get enough fiber in their diets. Just to give a value to it, we want to aim to try to get 20 to 30 grams of fiber into our diet each day. As I said, most Americans aren't getting that. In fact, most Americans barely get 15 grams of fiber, so definitely below. But one way that you can increase the fiber in your diet is by eating more plant foods. So things like fruits and vegetables, whole grains, so things like oatmeal, nuts, seeds, all of these have fiber in them. All right. And with that, I know it can be, as I said, challenging, right? We're trying to think of so many different things. You might be trying to follow a lower sodium diet. You don't want to eat too much unhealthy fats. We need to eat more fiber, just overall be healthy. There's a lot of things going on out there. So something that I like to try to do is start my day with a fiber-rich breakfast. That way you at least know that you're kind of getting off on the right foot, and it's going to help you meet the needs for the rest of the day. So one of these muffins has 3 grams of fiber in it, making it a good source of fiber. So if you create these or make these at home and you start to incorporate them into your weekly meal plan, you'll at least be getting a healthy dose of fiber in the morning, again, helping you like reach that 20 to 30 grams by the end of the day. All right, so I'm just topping off all of the batter here. And again, you're gonna wanna use up all of the batter in the 12 muffins. And it's okay to fill them to the top. They won't like overflow onto the sides of the muffin tins. They're just gonna rise a little bit. All right, and if you can see in the video here, I'm trying to make it a nice even mixture of the liquid as well as the solids from the oats. All right, almost done. I probably could have used a bigger spoon. All right. Great, so these are all pretty evenly distributed. And really the next step of this recipe is just baking them off. So what you're going to do is pop these into an oven at 350 degrees and bake them for about 25 to 30 minutes. You want the tops to be set, so not like smushy pushing in, and then they're good to go. Another trick is if you take a toothpick and insert it and then just pull it out. If it comes out clean, they're done. So we're going to put these into the oven, but because this is Learning Kitchen Live, I've created these already so you can see what they look like. So this is what the final product will look like. They come in these cute muffins. Again, it makes 12 muffins, or this recipe makes 12 muffins, and this is what they look like here. So in terms of like storage, reheating, you can pop these in an airtight container and leave them in the refrigerator for up to a week. And in the morning, you can just eat it as is cold. You can reheat it in the microwave. You can pair it with some yogurt or a piece of fruit to make a more balanced breakfast option. But again, it's a really nice, convenient on-the-go option for yourself, your kids, your family, or your loved ones. And if you're feeling really ambitious, you can actually make a bigger batch of these and then freeze them. So this is something that I do at home. I'll make a bigger batch of these muffins or a different flavor or variety, pop them in the freezer, and all you have to do is the night before you want one, take it out, put it in the fridge, and it'll defrost or thaw overnight. So again, in the morning, you can just eat it as is, reheat it, pack it as a snack, or even more like healthier, nutritious dessert option. So that's it. There you have these nice baked pumpkin oatmeal muffins. I hope that you learned something new on this recipe demonstration, or you're interested in trying it out. If you do try it out, feel free to let us know what you think in the comments section. And with that, I want to thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Learning Kitchen Live. Thanks.